Settling in, I had this crazy thought. So I'm not extremely tech savvy a person, and I thought it's going to be interesting for us to do a little bit of all things tech kind of knowledge test for all of you who say that you're a tech enthusiast. How about that? Yeah, do I hear a yes? Let's have some nerdy fun. What do you think? I think that'll help us get out of the sleepy slump that we have post-lunch, the fantastic lunch that we had. Can I hear a yes? Awesome, awesome, fantastic. So there was no way I was going to remember these questions. As I said, I gave you my short little introduction before on how tech savvy I am. So I got it on my phone, so please pardon me looking into my phone and reading the questions. But it's going to be out and open for all of you. And please raise your hand for anybody who wants to answer the question. A caveat there is, of course, I have no gifts, but let's have some fun. Okay? All right. The first question, and it's a fun question, is what was the first emoticon ever used? We use a lot of emoticons. Anybody to take a dig at that question? Somebody wants to answer that question? First emoticon, the emojis. Awesome, fantastic. What's your name?
Hi, Shraddha. From Nagaro. You just said smile emoji. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Fantastic. That's the right answer. It is the smiley, the 2 dots, a dash, and a smile. Okay. To the next question, now that you know that it's going to be fun, so let's have more people attempt it. What technology is used to record cryptocurrency transactions? For a lot of people who've made money out of cryptocurrency. Okay, I'm going to give it to him.
Blockchain.
Awesome. Gosh, you guys are failing me now. Fantastic. Okay, let me make it a little more exciting. Why is big data important? When I read that question, I was like, what the hell is big data? But okay, I'm hoping that you guys would know. Or is that a trick question? Why is big data important? Just, we are having fun. So anybody wants, oh, okay, so we have somebody. Gosh, and I have to look for the answer here to know if you're giving me the right one.
Hi, my name is Nikhil from Credex Technology. Big data is important for entire AI, machine learning and AI enablement.
So then you tell me whether you meant the same thing. So it says because it may be analyzed to reveal patterns and trends. Is that what you said? Be honest. Okay, fantastic. So I'll give that one to you. Thank you. Do we want any more questions? The price is that we all get to hear the next panelists. And I'm sure you guys are not going to regret that. Okay, so I'm going to keep these questions for later on session. Let's move on. I'm going to skip the stage because I think it's a smaller room and I have a better view of all of you here. So the next section, I'm going to give you a little brief on what we are going to be talking about. So it says it's difficult to imagine life without tech intervention today. We are super excited to learn from our eminent speakers. Both of them are here. Akash Saxena, Executive Vice President, CTO, Disney Hotstar, and Raghav Chandra, co-founder of Urban Company. May I have the pleasure of having both of you on stage, please? It was the two of you here listening to my questions. Okay, thank you. The stage is all yours.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see a big crowd. Raghav, it's good to find.
Yeah, no, we're good to be here, guys. It's also good to see people in person. I think we've all kind of saturated our patience with Zoom sessions, and I'm happy to be in person. that will bring more sense and structure to it. So let's begin with a little bit of an introduction. You want to go first?
Yeah, I am Akash. I am the CTO of Hotstar. Hopefully, some of you use our product, so thank you for doing that. Yeah, and over.
Yeah, my name is Raghav. I am one of the co-founders of the company, spend most of my time working in tech. I'm an engineer by experience, spent before Raghav company started when I was like, I was a baby, I was 23 years old. So my limited professional experience was in a tech company. I was in San Francisco, I worked at Twitter, when they were also tiny bird. Yeah, very, very hardcore engineering DNA.
Cool. So we're going to talk about scaling with all that mental horsepower that you've got. So let's talk about how UC has scaled from its inception. How many years has UC been around? 4 years?
We've been there for 9 years.
9 years now. Wow. Okay. Wow. So off. And so you've seen many cycles. Do you want to reflect back on how your scaling journey has been, right? Maybe, I don't know how far you want to go back, but over to you.
I think scale hits different companies in different ways. I think the definition of like what the relevance of scale actually changes. So for us, the way I look at scaling is with the notion of productivity, right? Companies which are able to deal with scale well, idea also being able to be fairly productive and have focus on the right things. Through the 9 years, I think, if I look at right now what scale means for us, it's actually not described by latency or high throughput. I think you guys would have a much more impressive, awe-striking scale. I like to define it in terms of our core business, which is services. So we are an amalgam of multiple categories. So even if you take just one category we do, which is say salon at home, barbers, beauticians, and so on and so forth. You take the biggest salon chains in India, take the 5 biggest salon chains, we would probably be like a magnitude more than in just that category, already in 10 years. And that's for us scale.
At Hotstar, I can describe the company itself is about 7 years old. I think our current iteration, the team has been together for 5+ years now, and we had 3 distinct segments in our life cycle. Initial cycle was really trying to get the product going. The second phase was really taking bets. We succeeded in phase 1, and we said, okay, now we really want to expand and call everyone to come consume Hotstar. And now in this current iteration, we are really all about expanding our footprint and our leadership. And in each part of that journey, and I want to hear from you if you think like that. What has helped us is to really have clarity on what is important. At Hotstar, I'll credit one of my ex-bosses for this was we had a lot of clarity on what is important. The most important thing was video must play. No matter what happens, video must play. Then came monetization. Back when we were ad supported, ad should play. And then when we added the subscription revenue line, subscription should happen. And then everything else came after that. And I think that clarity really helped us right from get-go to think about how we were building the product. And it helped as a disqualification function. So I don't know, did you guys have a similar journey, or did you likely run like that?
Like different phases of what has been important.
If that's rules to get you thinking about.
Yeah, no, I think very similar. In the beginning, 1 year, 2 years, it was patna nahi chahiye. Downtime should not happen. Multiple reasons for downtime to happen in the beginning days. Right? And people are shouting, "Ye 50 ideas."
That sounds very technical, by the way. Patna nahi chahiye.
Patna nahi chahiye. Very engineering jargon. So that was important. I think that morphed into the mid phase of empowering business, where different categories were innovating and given we are a tech-first business, we had to kind of build those journeys the right way quickly. Right. And I think now we've entered a phase where it's gone from tech empowerment to tech-driven, where a large part of the P&L mandate then kind of gets...
Very similar, like survival, establish, and now dominance. Right? So fantastic. For did you ever get to a point कि जब फट रहा था, when your things were dying, and how did you anticipate that? How did you plan for it?
That's a tough one. And it's very hard to. I think foresight is very important in building businesses or teams. And the foresight could be right or wrong. If it's wrong, then you're not a good leader. If it happens to be right, great. But it's very hard to predict everything. So I think at every phase, I've realized there are trade-offs which at least we've had to make. And it's been important to do good in the places where we've chosen to be good in. And it's fine if things are not as good. For the places that are willing to take the trade-off. For example, if scale or latencies have been things which have been broken down, and it takes time to build them right and takes time to do them well. And it's okay for other features to be slower. But if it's vice versa, if you want to optimize for businesses going through a fast scale-up journey, and you want to optimize for speed, but then you have to kind of give way to quality. How the trade-offs plan for you guys?
Yeah, I think you said an interesting thing about technical leaders being fortune tellers or future seers. We've been there. I think for us, the challenge has always been we never knew. Raghav and I was speaking earlier in the lobby, and I was telling him that we didn't know when we started the journey that we have this sort of a demand and so much flash demand. Right. So through our whole journey, while we've had to create all the blocks and we were following these principles about video must play and then monetization must happen and so on, we've never had we always obsessively plan for failure. So the mindset, at least that I applied, was it is going to fail, and I want to know when things will fail. I think that really helped us. While you can't look into the future, preparing for when things do go south really helped us, and I think that has been sort of fundamental at Hotstar. So we never said that, let us plan for 10 million concurrency and so on. We always said, okay, what happens at 10 million, right? What happens at 20, 30, 40, 50, right? There was a time when for the 2019 World Cup, we literally sat down and said, okay, let's just take an adverse, and it's an interesting pattern. I don't know if you have patterns like that, where I use it often with my team to say that let's think of an adverse scenario and plan for it, even though it may seem impossible. I do get a lot of heat from my team for it, but it has held me in good stead.
In your journey, what has been that one axis which has been the hardest, or which has often been the cause of breakages or productivity loss?
There's always something. There's always something that will, no matter how prepared I am, and I can't talk about all the battle stories, but there is always something or the other that will crap out. Whether now it could be something you're doing, it could be something that your ecosystem may experience in a failure. So you don't know. And honestly, it's all about how you react at that time. And I would say that one of the biggest things that has helped us is to be very strong operationally. I would say as much as we've got amazing engineers and we've built a great product, just being able to observe what was happening and react to it basis whatever drills we've ended up doing, I think that's really helped us in good stead. I don't know, what your journey has been there.
Just to follow up question, what does average, what does peak look like for you guys? Just to kind of build context on how quickly or different peak versus non-peak could be.
So peaks, you all see it on screen, and of course it's different in the S-word era. But it's very interesting. I'll tell you, I'm a big Dhoni fan. So the saying is, typically Dhoni walks on screen, and within literally a second, you have roughly about 4 million people on the platform. Literally Dhoni coming into work plus 4 million. So that's the kind of flash loads you end up seeing, right? And different parts of the stack see different peak loads. So that's it will not resonate as much as everyone can resonate with Dhoni walking on field, right? We all remember what happened in the World Cup and so on, but it's at that point, just the build-up is not in your hands at all. Like, we're literally sort of saying, more customers are coming, yay, very good. But, how are we going to keep servicing that? And it all gets into really planning for failure. So, we keep going back to that playbook.
Very interesting. I think platform like yours scale is so massive and rapid. I'm sure you guys will be breaking the underlying hosting solutions like AWS and the likes. For us, breaking at scale is actually manifested in different ways. For us, throughput or latency scale has not been like suddenly it goes to 100x peak. For us, it's been just the number of business models we have and not knowing what's the right business model. So, for example, pricing and how pricing appears to be done just in so many different ways. How do you model that? And if you model that wrong, that actually over time has caused the most unproductivity. So we've been very heavy on how to model tech and design with lesser complexity on, for example, latency or just the sheer magnitude.
Right. I think complexity is overrated. Simplicity is also hard, but I don't think building overly complex systems is the answer at all. I think I constantly push the team on that. But dig into a little bit on what are the kind of scaling challenges. Let's talk about a bit of human challenges in terms of scaling the team that you've seen over the last couple of years.
Scaling teams. And the way we've structured teams has evolved a lot through the years, and different scenarios have required different things. And if you use the lens of having productivity being very high, I think that notion changes. We started when you're very few engineers. Then typically the model in the beginning days was back end ko pehle rakh lete, and there you can and front end is different, right? And that further evolves into back end shaping into some form of microservices or capability centric teams. But client has always been harder, right? Because client has iOS, Android, web, maybe desktop and mobile web is different. So it's kind of the numbers are just so little. Now we have like a good 250 plus folks. So now building teams is a different art. So now all our teams are fundamentally structured by a common sense of purpose, which is more business aligned. So we won't have, say, an Android vertical or an iOS vertical separately. And that ends up being the most productive. And it kind of goes back to the initial questions, what's been the clarity question.
Yes.
And what was important was just getting the job done back in the early days. Now there's a notion of thinking business, and engineering and tech need to think business. So it's important for them to also organize by business problems versus tech problems.
Got it. No, makes sense. I think for engineering leaders, organizational design is a big area, and certainly it's not the same beast at different points in your life cycle, as you said. We had the same journey. Phase one was about there's never going to be always joke and say that are you paid enough and do you have enough engineers? The answer is always no. So you're never going to reach that critical mass. So it's all about saying, initially when we have fewer people, serializing the inbound really helped us, which is what we did, which is basically specialization by function. And as we grew, we followed a similar path in sort of saying, now let's take many bets and say each bet has a group that's chasing it, and this is full stack, and people are going to go out and some bets will win, most bets will fail. But let's go big and scale. And then that was a phase, and now we see that I think in phase two really we struggled with over time each function was really chasing their win, and then how do you sort of bring people back to focus on the organizational win, which is where we're sort of focusing on now as well. I mean, again, the business has done incredibly well, but staying on the inside and then just focusing on productivity a bit. The curious thing is always, how do you measure that without being the police?
What would be an example of that? Like too much of capability in the
Too much capability. I think it's a function in time thing. An example of that would be that earlier on we had a team that was only focusing on the social experience. So if you watched cricket ever on the platform, you're going to there's a whole chat experience, and there are these cards, and the variety of engagement capabilities that are built in, right? So we had a group that only innovated on that and built that. Right? Today people watch Big Boss on the platform and all the voting and everything just happens on the platform. We take it for granted now, a lot of engineering went into that. Then we said, okay, we want a group that's only focusing on client experiences. So we said, hey, you guys go off and you are the CEO of the thing and go make it big, right? As engineering, product design, go make it happen. And it was important then to do that for us, right? Especially, sometimes we don't get enough credit for being homegrown. Say, Netflix is, and again, huge credit. It's an amazing product. So sometimes we get flack for that, but we have had to earn our way to where we are today. Right? I remember when we started, at a conference not unlike this, I was asked if I was selling subscriptions. I said, hey, I'm an engineer. So, oh, you have engineers? I said, yeah, someone's got to be building this, right? But, from there in 2017 to where we are today, we've been fortunate to have that ride.
Within team structuring, it's fair to say like the extremes often don't work, right? While in the beginning, you'd be very functional in nature. Like you could have teams which are very specific to the choice of technology. If you abstract that too much, that doesn't work either because teams stop being very business centric. So you can have a team which is just working, say, data or say personalization, but then they would have built all the algorithms of personalization and then they'll just stop there. They'll be like, well, you use it or business team should use it. We have done our job, which is not helpful. You want engineering to think fairly high amounts of business.
Yeah, I've been lucky that actually our team, I think I've been blessed. This is truly a blessing. I think the group is very high on ownership and loves to dig into everything. So we oftentimes have many opinions in the room, which is really good and powerful, but the focus is critical, right? We are coming up on time, so I just want to get your, maybe one thing to round off the conversation is how do you calibrate your self-awareness as an engineering leader? You had all this 9-year journey and, I've had my journey. So how do you think of that? Now in hindsight, you have all this, insight. But at runtime, how do you sort of say, oh my God, what's happening here?
Well, this is a tough one. I think I had gotten a very good lesson in the first 2 years by burning my fingers. As a very, very young founder manager, I got pushed into managing teams, right? And then after all the theory you read, you said, well, managing teams is about people and so on and so forth. So I kind of abstracted myself, only stuck to people-ish problems and giving people space. But there was a blind side there. Because you have so much of trust in how people are looking at what's getting done, as a founder or a head, you lose perspective. Right? So when technical debt became a real conversation topic, I had no clue why things are not solving. Right? And some engineer told me, Raghav, you could be two types of CTO. You could be the, sage, proper philosophy advice, but you kind of need to look that role also, or you could be the hands-on guy. So choose. That was a good prompt for me to start actually becoming very hands-on. So I wasn't contributing, but I kind of made a flip of just looking at code obsessively. And that was a very interesting insight because I realized people operate with their own mind frame. So their ability to say what's good and bad in your team is basically how they perceive what's good and bad. And as a leader, you can have a different opinion. So when you become very hands-on, it actually does fuel a lot of decisions which you should have made or you could make, which kind of shaped a lot of my journey. So the way I collect feedback is I've actually stopped asking people for feedback. Audible? Perfect. So yeah, I've stopped asking people for feedback for my own insights. I actually end up doing a little bit of discovery myself, be it looking at code, be it looking at metrics, just to be in touch with, am I getting blindsided by other people's opinion or not? So that's been my way. Well, what's your...
No, fair. I think lots of failures, lots and lots of failures, and I'm sure there will be more. I think similar to you, I think, again, my leadership principle very much is, and I tell this to every senior leader who I hire, is, I don't hire people managers. I always hire people. For me, fundamentally, technical engineers in general will look up to you if you can speak their language. So yes, some engineers or leaders will be good at engineering and will be good at people. uh, as we were growing, one of the challenges was about how, and I'll use separation of concern here, right? So while that was the thing, when we were small, as we were scaling up, clearly we got stretched very thin. And then that's how I've sort of, grown the group and said, okay, now I need a dedicated, let's say, architect cadre, need a dedicated program management office and so on. But yes, I think that's been my journey, and really sort of reminding myself that am I overclocking my team, if I can use that word, and then making decisions like that. But there's no substitute to being in the weeds, and the level varies clearly. As a senior leader, you can't be too much in it, but spot on there. I think we should cut to questions, but
yeah, opening the floor to
yeah.
you guys. Any questions from?
Thank you, Akash and Raghav. And yes, we can take a couple of questions. Let me get the mic to you.
Hi Raghav, hi Akash. Amazing chat here. So my name is Shreya. I'm the founder of SelfBest, a new startup there. So a bit of an idea on like when you talked about scaling teams, when you become from like a 20-person team to a 250+ person team, how do you manage the culture change, and how do you manage the amount of flatness that's there in the organization, and how it ends up become hierarchical? How is the axis defined?
A quick thing is, again, this is hindsight, but writing is very powerful. I think articulating what your culture is, right? Clearly, when you were 20 people, you had a very strong culture, and in terms of everyone knew each other, and no one needed reminding of why they were doing something. But writing them down, distilling it, it may feel a little touchy-feely HR-ish, but it really helps. Setting expectations, again, in written, saying, what do I expect from you? If you do this, you will expect this from me. And it's a bit of a roles and responsibility kind of thing. That really helps. I think taking away the ambiguity is a big power up, in my opinion.
All right.
And was this mostly for tech or engineering teams scaling up?
Yes.
Got it. I've seen that this could be lack of industry sophistication, and maybe it's a journey, but I've seen oftentimes people look at engineering as a resource function. So 2x the team size, 2x the output. I think the real trick, and it's probably true for other orgs also, but in Eng it manifests beautifully, where a lot of the productivity loss, actually 2x the team might even be less than 1x the output, which is very weird and counterintuitive. Like you would be outputting less than what you would have. And the reason is every additional person adds one more communication chain, right? And it's tough to manage those communication chains. So the real balance in scaling teams is being very cognizant of how this communication complexity is evolving, and keeping the complexity very low.
So the collaboration tools like Slack kind of come in the picture probably there?
Team structure, collaboration tools, platformization, something which we didn't talk about, but you want to close on choices so that teams are focused. If everyone's kind of questioning everything, then there's a lot of, like large scale teams require a lot more other things to happen also than managing 10 people.
Right. Thank you so much.
Hi, Akash and Raghav.
Can you check the mic, please? Hello. All right, so we are back. We'll take one more question before we wrap up. You have the mic with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Hi, Akash and Raghav. Thanks for the conversation on the scaling piece, especially when you were touching the technology pieces and the infrastructure required for the same. Now, I have a quick question to understand, as young startups or mature startups, somewhere down the line, you will have a growth strategy. What is your strategy to go into the international business markets, as on today?
We're there in like 5 other countries outside India as well.
Lovely.
Where we're there in UAE, Australia, Singapore, doing a pilot in the US as well. And some of those where we've been, we're also like fairly large. So our strategy is just a question of time. You have to solve what you're solving for the market you're solving, you have to solve well. And I mean, globe is the oyster, right? So it's just a matter of timing. And for us, the timing of international started a few years ago. Yeah. But
That's lovely to hear. How about you?
I would say, I would dwell on what Raghav said. You know, going global will amplify any badness you have in the system. If you are not sufficiently platformized, and I'll say sufficiently because it's an optimal function, in terms of how your product is or your operations are, you are in for a world of pain, right? And the other thing is humility. I think, you know, again, we are running, we're pretty much we are running in Middle East, Southeast Asia, in Africa, and you know, having a humility about customers being different everywhere, and the experience being different everywhere, right? Classically, people will, you may not realize sitting in the NCR region that Indonesia has thousands of islands, and they have terrible connectivity. So, you know, I think building that empathy, it helps to have feet on the ground as well, to build that empathy. In general, customer empathy is number one. If you don't have that, you're not going very far.
Brilliant. Thanks for taking the question. Thank you.
Okay, I think with that, Akash and Raghav, a very interesting tete-a-tete with both of you. You're going to be around, so I'm sure if there are more questions, then you can catch them right here. And what my takeaway personally is like how you mentioned that complexity is overrated, and I totally couldn't echo less. With that, and simplicity is sometimes more hard to get. With that, we'd request you to be on stage for a few more minutes. We'd like to honor you with a small token of appreciation. For that, I'd like to call upon Swaraj Sudhish Gupta, the Associate Director, Technology, Web Mobile Technology. Please put your hands together to welcome him on stage.